is to be determined.
It's crazy. It's crazy that just having him just telling someone, hey, we need you to be our third line center is almost like he's treating it like an insult, and that's just, I don't know.
It's an insult a little bit. Third line center takes a lot of defensive zone draws, not a lot of offensive zone draws. They don't get first power play unit time. It's a little bit of it's a more difficult minute than it is sometimes as a second line center. So, yeah, Brassard wants to be the guy who lights up the scoreboard and is seen as that dynamic player, and that the Penguins are putting him in more of a gritty sort of role and with less ice time. And that's probably where the real ego rub comes is the less ice time. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting how that plays out. What about Sprong? Does he have a future on this?
Started.
I know. I've seen your tweets about him. I know you're a big fan. Do you think?
Let me explain. I like to think that I'm providing very straight analysis on Daniel Sprong, for better and for worse. I saw one blog, God bless them, call him a dynamic young talent. And I was like, what the hell are you thinking? Because, sure, he was almost a point per game in the American Hockey League. There's a ton of guys who are a point per game in the American Hockey League. Buffalo's Daniel O'Regan. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
That's kind of my point. He's a couple years older than Sprong, and he was part of the Evander Kane trade last year. Was it last year or maybe a year and a half ago? It was just a year and a half ago. Sent from San Jose to Buffalo. Point per game guy in the AHL. There's a huge difference in scoring at the American Hockey League versus scoring in the NHL. The things that Sprong is learning how to do, puck support, defensive positioning, where to be, read and react on the breakouts. These are very fundamental tenets in the NHL that Daniel Sprong is missing. Even a kid like Dominic Simone, who fans love to just ride, has that basic knowledge where he can integrate himself into an NHL roster, whereas Sprong is still learning these things because for whatever reason, he just has never he's never incorporated that into his game. And putting him on a line with Sidney Crosby, good gosh, Crosby can carry a lot of good players. But if the guy is impeding your breakout, not helping your puck support, that puts you on your heels, not on your toes. And if you do that for 18 minutes a game, you're in deep, deep trouble. So scratch the whole Sprong and Crosby dream that a lot of people have. The Penguins, if they choose to continue to develop Daniel Sprong, that third and fourth line is where he will do it. He doesn't have to score on that line. And I know that sounds weird to say. He doesn't have to light the lamp. He has to show a mastery of the basic skills. And when he can do that, then he can begin to find out where you score goals at the NHL level. Monday night and Saturday, and I know I'm maybe being long-winded and bloviating here, he tried the same play where he's coming along the boards towards the blue line, going the entirely wrong direction, and tries a shot on goal. That play works. I've seen him score on that in the AHL. That play is DOA in the NHL. So he, once he gets the basics, then he's got to take that next step as a scorer and learn where the NHL hot zones are and where he has to be and how to integrate himself into that. He's got such a long process to go that it's almost unfair to call him or to call for him to play with Crosby. It would be an unmitigated disaster for he and the team. And he is, if they choose to develop him, he is where he should be on that third or fourth line.
In baseball, they have a term for that, a 4A player. You know, you're too good for minor leagues, but you're not good enough for the majors. And kind of sounds like that's where he sits. So
he's not quite to 4A territory, only because I think if the Penguins had another couple years, like if they hadn't burned his first year of the ELC, he'd be back in the American Hockey League this year learning what he's learned in NHL training camp, right? He'd be executing, stepping into the circle and letting one fly. He's got a great shot. He'd be doing those things as opposed to trying AHL plays in the NHL. But that's kind of, it's unfair to Daniel and it's unfair to the Penguins. If the Penguins were winning, this would be a non-issue, right?
Yeah,
I mean, no one would really care. But since they've sucked out loud for the last month plus, it is an issue. And I wish fans wouldn't put that pressure on Sprong to be a savior or a guy who could jumpstart the team's offense, because it just won't. I mean, it would be a disaster. But and by the same token, he's got to keep learning too. So there's a balance to strike.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like making him a healthy scratch and having him learning practice would help that much. It sounds like he just needs to be on the job training and hope he figures it out.
A mix, you can certainly put him in the press box after a few games and say, okay, you've done this. Now I want you to watch Simone, watch Kessel on that right wing do this. Watch where they go. Yeah. And kind of begin to plant those seeds. I think you might see that going forward. Although, who is the Penguins' 13th forward at this point? It would be Derek Grant, and I don't know how much that's going to help anybody's situation.
Right. What about the goaltending? What, Matt Murray, do you just let him play and figure it out? Do you actually try to help him instead of leaving him hanging out to dry?
Good gosh.
What do they need to do with him or the whole situation?
If you know the answer, I'll give you Jim Rutherford's cell phone number. I think it's confounding in a lot of ways, because no one saw this level of struggle coming. Last year, he was up and down, right? His glove hand was exposed. But part of that last year was the Penguins' defense was so terrible. Not the defenseman, but the Penguins' team defense was so terrible that shooters could look and size Murray up, and they had that kind of time and space to pick him apart, like a Thanksgiving turkey. This year, his confidence hasn't rebounded from that shellacking he took, and it's gone down. You see Murray backing deeper into the net. He was that deep in the net guy when he first came up to the NHL. Like Henrik Lundqvist is a guy who plays on the goal line, post to post. That's his style. The Penguins worked with Murray. Mike Buckley probably, who is very close with Murray. And I'm drawing a blank on the previous goaltending coach. You'll forgive me, Mike. I forget his last name. But they pulled Murray out of the crease, and they made him bigger. And that's really where you saw Murray flourish. It doesn't matter if you've got maybe a subpar glove hand if there's no net to shoot at. But when Murray's backing in because his confidence is shot or diminished, and he's given that net to shoot at, then every single flaw of his is magnified. So I don't know what you do with Matt Murray right now. Maybe you hypnotize him and make him forget the last 14 months of hockey. and you just pick him up from 2017, and the best 2 games he's ever played in his life were games 5 and 6 of the 2017 Stanley Cup Finals when he stole a couple games. Since those 2 games, he's not been the Penguins franchise goalie. And hey, here's a little nugget to drop on you. He's a free agent after next season. So the Penguins can start negotiating with him this coming summer. Like July 1, they can start talking contract with him. I don't think he or they have any clue what to do right now with that impending situation. It's just, Joe, it's going to be really tough. They're going to have to really work their tail off with him. Maybe you make some wholesale changes to get in his head to make him believe. Like Cal Ripken used to do this. He used to change Cal Ripken's batting stance 180 degrees, and he would feel good for a couple weeks and go on a tear. Maybe they need to just blow up Murray's head a little bit and do something like that. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it's scary, and the only bright spot is he's been able to do it before, so hopefully he can figure out and do it again. It's not like it's. Oh,
there's a good goalie in there.
Yeah,
they just have to find him somewhere. Think of Bagger Vance. Have to find his true swing somewhere in there.
Yeah. Well, I remember Fleury had his issues, and he needed he went to a sports psychologist. So it's
maybe they've got that guy on or gal on speed dial.
Yeah. Another thing I hear is, well, bring people up from the minors. Is there anybody actually available that could come in and help?
I am very interested in Teddy Blueger. I haven't watched him play since the Penguins sent him down at the end of training camp. I do know a couple things about him. We watched him intently in September. He's fast. He's a fast player. He plays very fast. He's dogged on the puck, almost to the point sometimes he's over-aggressive. He makes some mistakes of aggression. He's like a dog chasing a parked car sometimes. He just is going for it. So I don't know if he would integrate well into the NHL game or not, but I know that there's a lot of potential there. The Penguins' third and fourth lines have been a problem spot. I know fans... I was dismayed when I saw some big bloggers calling Matt Cullen Dusty Bones. I just cringed when I saw that. Because Matt Cullen's had a couple bad games. Those were primarily the 2 or 3 games following the 4-game road trip. On the 4-game road trip, he was playing 16 minutes a night as the Penguins shut down center and did an extraordinary job. I mean, level 10, grade A job. But if you play a 42-year-old 16, 17 minutes a night, you're going to wear him down very quickly. So when the Penguins got home, all of that travel, all of those minutes, the Islanders just ate his lunch. And that gave a lot of people who want to pick on Matt Cullen ammunition. Once the Penguins called up Zach Aston Reese, Matt Cullen's game picked up once again. He was kind of carrying Daniel Sprong. I know some fans don't want to hear that. That's the God's honest truth. They run a line with a guy who was zigging when he should have zagged. When they dropped Garrett Wilson and Zach Aston Reese beside Cullen, that line exploded with offensive chances, with zone time, with offensive pressure, and they finally popped that pimple against Ottawa